So there are so many questions about real estate. Should you buy? Should you rent?
Or should you sell?
Or should you sell? Does real estate actually make you money? What happens? It's very confusing. Again, we don't necessarily have all the answers, but we do have our very interesting journey to share with you. Hi everyone, welcome back to the CMO on Sabbatical series. I'm Utkarsh, and for the first time I have someone with me.
Hi everyone. So I believe all of you would know that I'm his wife, but at the same time I'm here as a real estate agent, which is my profession. I'm currently working for Hudson's.
Yes, and we seem to be matching for some reason. This was not planned. Yeah. So let's get into it. Jokes apart, a lot of people from the first two videos have asked me the question, and specifically what has been one of the drivers of me being able to retire at the age of 37. I'll be clear, I'm retired. Nidhi is not. She doesn't want to retire, like ever.
I love my work. Real estate in Singapore especially is such an interesting... everybody has a different journey, and I'm really glad that we're sharing ours today. So let's get into it.
Yes. And a big part of what has enabled me to retire has really been what we've done with real estate. So I want to share with you our journey, which started about 7 years ago. We're going to go through some numbers. We're going to go through the result. You've seen kind of the result that we've already shared with you in the thumbnail, which is a 10x result. I will give you a couple of caveats. We are rounding up numbers for simplicity and for confidentiality, frankly speaking. And the second thing is that the 10x is really when you compare versus renting. So, this is if you were spending money on rent.
Yeah.
Because there is rental money, etc. We'll explain that. I don't want to keep life too complicated. But nonetheless, this has been an extreme value add, at least to our personal finances.
Definitely.
Okay, so let's take a journey back in time to 2017. That's the photo. Some numbers on the screen. I had a beard back then, apparently. You still wore the same color, apparently.
I look slimmer.
Okay. So this is where we're sitting. We're about 31 years old, right?
Yeah.
Roughly of that age. I hadn't really been that much of a saver or that financially conscious, honestly, for the first few years of my career. So I've been working for almost 9 years at this point. And this is what we have. I have a lot of money saved in CPF in Singapore. Mm. And the reason for this is forced saving. I didn't have a choice.
Yeah.
Right.
Which is great, in a way, because, not many countries allow you to do something like that. And honestly, having CPF as a backup to be able to make down payment has really helped a lot of my clients to secure their dream house. But let's get back to our story.
Yes. Cash-wise, we didn't really have a lot, right? We had about $80,000.
Yeah.
For 8 years, 9 years of working, it's really not that much, right? So with this, what we were able to afford was about a house of about 1.2 million-ish.
Yeah.
So the house that we got was about 1.15 mil. And what it cost us was really a down payment. The house itself was 20% at that point in time. So we put $230,000 down. And we put a stamp duty of $30,000. And basically, all of this was paid from our cash plus CPF.
Yeah.
Right? And the mortgage for this $1.15 million house was about $3,200 a month.
Yeah.
Right? So this is where we started. And just to give you another breakup, the mortgage of the $3,200, about $1,000 something was going into the interest, and about $2,000 was going into repaying the principal of the mortgage.
Yeah.
Now, this is really where the magic happens, right? When you think of it, I have a $3,000 mortgage or I have a $3,000 rent, and you think, about the same. It's very different.
It's very, very different.
It's shockingly different, because on one hand, you're just spending $3,000. On the other hand, say in this particular case, you are spending $1,000 on interest, but $2,000 of it is actually going back into your saving.
Yeah.
And plus, you're getting capital gain on top. Right, so if you can get yourself into a position to buy a house, and this is very specific to Singapore, because Singapore is a country where interest rates tend to be a bit lower.
Comparatively,
right?
yes.
Yeah. Maintenance cost for even condominiums are much lower. We were shocked the other day when we were talking to someone we know, the maintenance cost on their very expensive condo, but not that expensive.
Back in United States, it's
in
crazy.
Florida was crazy. Like 10x.
How much did he say it was?
Like I just thought that he was giving a number for a year and it was for a month. It's at least 10x.
It was at least 10x, yes.
So Singapore gives you this unique opportunity because maintenance fees are relatively okay. So in the case of this particular house, maintenance fee was $300 a month.
Yeah.
Right? So that's like 10% of the mortgage or even less. All right? So that's where we were. Now, we let this run. We let this run for a few years. And now we move on to 2021. About the time that we think about selling the house, the world has changed. We are masked up, but Nidhi is still wearing the same color. So I don't know what to make of that. Yeah. So here's the thing. We didn't have a massive amount of capital gain. It was about 4% a year.
Yeah.
Right? So the 1.15 mil went to 1.35 mil, about $200,000 of capital gain.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Remember how I told you when we were paying the mortgage, you end up paying back the principal. So we had taken an 80% loan on a $1.1 million house. Some of it had been paid back. So we were left at about 813K.
Yeah.
And then, of course, agents helping us sell the house.
Well, there's marketing costs associated with
Yeah.
it. So, it's not just everything that goes into our...
No, actually, there's no excuse to be made about this. I mean, there's a lot of hard work done, right?
But definitely a topic for another day for sure. So let's move on to the more important things, which is how much was our outstanding loan and how much profit did we actually make?
Yes. So we got 1.35 mil from the property. We had to pay back 813 to the bank, 27 to the agent. So it was still a net profit of $509,000. Not bad. So the way I look at it is, and of course, $509,000, some of it goes back into CPF. That's how Singapore works.
Yeah.
With interest, it goes back into CPF. It's still your own money. You can use it for
Eventually,
housing.
you can use it for the down payment of the next house.
Yeah.
So,
and we got $300,000 in cash. So the way I saw it is that I put down $80,000 in cash. I paid rent as usual, $3,000 or whatever, as I would have if I didn't have a house. And suddenly, 4 years later, that $80,000 has turned into $300,000 of cash, and my CPF has grown as well.
Yeah.
Right. So it was great because I had not had much value addition to my finances the previous 8 years. It was like struggling to save $1,000 here, $2,000 there, and I had certain things I liked. I had a car, right? I mean, that really messed with my finances, so to speak. But this was like a very interesting thing that happened. Right? And again, it's not like I bought a property and it doubled overnight. It's just a 4% capital gain.
Which is a pretty achievable capital gain in Singapore market, to be honest.
Yeah. So, see, there are two things I do want to call out here. The reason this happens is there is leverage. Right? There is good leverage and there's bad leverage. If you're leveraging that you're borrowing on margin to do stocks and options, you are taking a big risk. In the case of the Singapore market, where you have a very controlled real estate market with a lot of measures by the government, it's very safe leverage, so to speak. So I do want to mention that as well. Okay, so what did we do in 2021 after we sold this house?
Oh, we went through... I think our property agent probably would be able to sum it up much better in the journey of helping us finding that perfect house that we were looking for. But it's not really about the perfect house. It is, what do you... finding that perfect gem, I would rather say, in that imperfect market.
Houses are interesting. There's a combination. You're going to live there. There's a financial aspect to it. There's an investment aspect to it.
Yeah.
So here's our journey, and we'll probably make that. The journey was really long, so this video cannot do justice to that. But I'll give you some numbers, right? And I'll give you certain things. And this is where I think the magic started happening. Really, the first house was first piece of magic. This is the second piece of magic. So let's start off with where we are. Lots of numbers, just stay with me. We had $509,000 from the house sale. We had $170,000 additional CPF, because remember, I'd been working for 4 years. I was maxing out CPF at my income level as a reasonably high income earner, more than $200,000 a year. So I had additional CPF built up. I had cash savings for the first time after a long time, but I'm a higher income earner. Suddenly I had a little bit more money, because another important point is lifestyle inflation, right? This is not linked to property, but generally as your income goes higher, you tend to inflate your lifestyle. Guess what? We were earning $200,000 plus a year. Our mortgage or rent was 3K, 36K, not even 15, maybe 15% of my salary, which is a very small number, right? So you can imagine that left a lot of cash overflow. So then we had $509,000 plus $170,000 plus $200,000, close to $900,000 available. And what we did is we put that into a house worth $3.1 million. Very different ballgame. And as you can imagine here, the down payment is close to $800K, stamp duty is $109K. Now, why did we do that? And to be very honest, this was a big decision. Many sleepless nights, a lot of thinking about it. And I think a lot of your clients go through certain things like that, right?
And actually, there's one thing that I want to mention here is that, a lot of people say that, it may look at the onset of it that we did not make any lifestyle compromises. So going back to what you were saying, to be able to get a rental of $3K, to be able to pay a rental of $3K every month, it's not that, we were living just extravagant spending and stuff like that. We were actually staying in a really, really old condominium where things would break down. But because we wanted the space, we had to make that kind of shift in our lifestyle. We were actually sharing a place with someone, one of his friends, to be able to make that work for us. So just wanted to add that there, that, sometimes you have to make these kind of, so it may look absolutely great at the surface level, but then, you do make certain compromises to reach that goal that you want to achieve.
Yeah, I think it's a very good point. And I'm just going to give you the detail here because it's not in the numbers to keep life simple. We mentioned a mortgage of 3.2K a month. So what we were doing is we had rented out our house, which has a mortgage of 3.2K a month. We had rented it out for $3,500. And we were living in a different house for 3.2K where we were sharing the rent. Yeah. So basically what was happening is it was effectively costing us the same as a mortgage. The rent was paying for the mortgage, but just to help you understand how this worked out. And indeed, we could have said that, hey, we are earning more than $200,000 or whatever. We can afford to spend $6,000 on rent. But, I've had this very strong thing that I don't want my rent to be more than the mortgage or the rent that I'm earning from my house. So that was one of the things that we did.
So that really helped us actually to achieve the savings that we wanted to
It did,
through.
Because that made a difference of, if you count it over 4 years, of $50,000, $60,000, $70,000.
Yeah, because ultimately when you're actually buying the next house, you need to have certain down payment. Of course, you can take 20% from your CPF, but you still need to have that 5% in terms of cash.
Yeah. I'm not against renting. Sometimes you do have to rent, but do recognize that there's a significant opportunity cost. Unless you're an expert and you know what to do with your capital. Property is a very simplistic way of adding value. So getting back to this, so the house that was $3.1 million, our budget initially was about 2.5 or something, maybe 2. Started at 2, went to 2.5. You know how it goes. All of us have been there. You think your budget is 2, but you see something slightly higher and you like it. Then your budget goes up.
And sometimes you have to be a little realistic as well, let's be honest, because, we all have certain objectives that we want to achieve. And then obviously you have to have certain priorities that you want to hit. So if you wanted to have a certain house in a certain location at a certain space, then, we have to make that switch from certain price point to a certain price point, which most of our clients, actually my clients, do. So yeah.
So in our particular case, we were very clear there was one thing we wanted, which was space. I mean, look behind me, and if you look into our house, you will understand why. So we were very flexible on location. It was just, and this is where in life and in property, sometimes there's an element of timing, sometimes an element of luck. You can't rely on it, but if it does come across your way, you should seize on it with no questions asked.
Yeah.
And what happened is that we were, and this is where actually it's really, Nidhi, I think it's interesting. You have moments, you can spend years in your life and you may earn a few $150,000 a year making it up here, right? And there can be a decision or something you do in a moment and you can add hundreds of thousands of dollars of value. Mm-hmm. And housing can be like that. So in our particular case, we had a house which was really good. We found a house that really good, was slightly outside our budget. The way I would frame this house is it's like the Mona Lisa with a mustache. It's an amazing house, but it had one small problem, which had deterred a lot of buyers. But it was a fixable problem. And we'll talk about this in a different point in time.
Yeah.
That combined with the restrictions at the time of COVID, etc., and of course some great negotiating by Nidhi, it was really all her. I had nothing to do with it. We managed to get the house below value, significantly below value. So the house that is $3.1 million was probably worth closer to 3.7 or 3.8. So that's what I said, right? One moment suddenly you're adding $700,000 worth of value. I will reiterate, it's not a strategy you can rely on. The first house we bought was not like that. It's just by chance that this particular thing happened.
Yeah.
And we did that, right? And that's why we stretched. We stretched to 3.1 because we were like, okay, we are spending 3.1, but it's a 3.8 or 3.7 house at that point in time.
Yeah, there was definitely a lot of value because when you look at a lot of different factors, what's the valuation, where the location is, where this could potentially go in terms of the pricing. So we had to make that call. And it was a very fast...
Yeah, when we had to make the call, we had to literally make the call in a few hours. But we were prepared because we had been through it. We had done the math. And one contrast of the second house versus first house is first house, I had no idea. Nothing. We just went, is it in the budget? Does it look good? Whatever. Second house, we were very, very aware of the relative pricing of... and Singapore, again, is so transparent, and especially if you have a good agent, they can actually give you good insight into what is the development potential of different areas. It's very transparent. And often you can make certain choices that are... there are places, for example, where today it's not everything you want it to be, but it will be in 10 years. And sometimes what it will be in 10 years is not fully priced into the market.
Yeah.
So stuff like that, right? And it's all transparent. So just being aware, just having a good agent, just being clear on the numbers can really help you. So that's what we did. So in 2021, about 3 years ago, this is what we did. We put down literally all the money we had into this particular thing. Now again, this is not to say that you should fully leverage yourself in real estate, but then at that point in time, given our combined earning at that point in time, etc., we felt fairly comfortable. And when we bought the house, my bonus was due in like 2 or 3 months, which was already secured. Everything was clear. So I was very, okay, I'm putting down all the cash I have, but I know I have so much money coming in. I know my salary is this, and I know it's secured at that point in time, right? Being at the company for 10, 11 years, whatever it might be. Hence, we could have the confidence. This is why it links to the other part of it, right? You do need capital to make money, but you do need a career and a job or other things to get you the capital if you don't have that, if you're not inheriting it, right?
True.
Okay, now we get to the last part of it, where we are sitting today. This photo is from this year, yes. Not from Singapore though. Sri Lanka, right, I think?
Yeah,
Sri Lanka. Okay, so remember how we said the house was worth about 3.7, 3.8 million? Well, we also got a little bit lucky in terms of timing because right post-COVID, there was a surge in the Singapore property market. In fact, globally, there was a surge in property prices. Singapore was not that much. But by Singapore standards, it was a lot. So our house valuation is currently sitting at 4.7. If we fix the Mona Lisa mustache, which we talk about, it's probably going to go even higher. But I'm just using a conservative number over here just to keep life simple. So we're sitting on, in 3 years, a capital gain of 1.6 million. And honestly, folks, this is why I sometimes say that capital leads to significant...
Yeah.
When you have the capital to invest, the upsides can be significant if this capital is significant. So can the downside, but as I talk, Singapore real estate is a slightly different asset class. The outstanding loan is about 2.15 mil. So we have a net position on this house currently of about 2.5 mil. 2.55 mil. If you sell it today with minus agent fees, $2.5 million. So literally we have gone from in the 2017 having about $250,000 between our cash and CPF to having $2.5 million. 10x, literally. Now, of course, we have paid the mortgage every month, etc., etc. But then, as I said at the beginning, it's like comparing versus renting. If you were renting something like what we have, which is a large 4-bedroom in River Valley, it probably costs even more than a mortgage, frankly.
Yeah.
Much higher, actually.
Much higher, actually.
Probably about 10, 11K. We're paying about 8K, all, including maintenance. But there you go. This is the magic, right? This is the magic that sometimes you can... If you are smart about it, you're deliberate about it, if you don't let emotion guide you, if you can... Emotion does have to guide you to some extent.
Emotion definitely plays a part.
Maybe I'm a little bit more rational. Yeah. Maybe you would say
I wouldn't say that you will completely rule it out because when you're buying a property, especially if it's not an investment property, because for us it was a stay plus investment, right? So emotional aspect definitely was included into it. But then that's where you have to be practical and make that call as well, because... As I was just sharing earlier, sometimes we meet a lot of clients who will say, oh, I'm just going to wait, the property may just drop. And then you're just waiting to be way too practical about everything. And then you never make that call. So, and then 2 years later, the property market went up like 2 times.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. The thing is, you can't be sure of anything. Anything can happen any day. But the thing that I have found with the Singapore property market is because it is so controlled, at least the private property market. Singapore is a very interesting country where the government actually cares about the affordability of property. All over the world, affordability of property has become terrible.
Yeah, especially with all the recent measures, like HDB pricing was just going so high. They immediately introduced measures like, you have to wait out for 15 months.
If you sell a private property, you need to wait for 15 months.
The HDB rental was going so high, they came up with the occupancy of 6 increased to 8 and things like that. So they're very invested. Government is very invested.
Yeah, so Singapore government has to make sure that HDB or public property pricing is a certain multiple of the average salary. They try to ensure that. So what does that mean? It means that given this, and also given the reality that Singapore population does generally tend to have to increase a little bit over time to compensate for an aging population, so you need to have new workforce. Singapore property market is generally maybe not the fastest growing asset class, but a steadily growing asset class over the long term, which gives us the confidence to make these moves. And with a higher number of capital, you can make a lot more. Now we have, say, $2.5 million. We could reinvest it back. We could buy 2 properties, as an example, one under my name, one under Nidhi's. And, and then you have one property where you're earning capital gain, other property is giving rental income. So
that's where we always do, sell one, buy 2.
Yeah, actually, sell one, buy 2 is a very popular thing once you have the capital built up. So that's where we are. This is our journey. Everybody's experience will differ, but I think it has been, honestly, if I think about the difference, if I had, just decided, I don't know too much about property. Why do I want to spend so much? How do I put so much down payment? The difference here, this is added $2.5 million. If, say, over the last 7 years I had not bought property, of course I could have invested that money elsewhere, but we talked about leverage, so it wouldn't have given you so much of a return. I would probably have spent at least $500,000 on rent.
Yeah.
So it's like a $3 million. And of course, I would have made some money from the money I didn't invest in the property. Don't get me wrong.
I mean, of course, we're not really sharing this because we want to give you the exact numbers and we want to talk about, what offsets what. It's more coming from the perspective, and that's why we've not really been talking from a very real estate agent perspective, to be honest. We've been really talking from a very, very people who would want to buy property perspective and how this has helped us, and to let you know that, this is one way to invest in your own capital to grow your capital. That's one of the reasons why we're making this video, to share it with you. We're not really bringing numbers and real estate agent perspective and all that. Really, really keeping it very simple and basic to share this with all of you.
Yeah. So hopefully this has been helpful. If you are in or around Singapore, I'm sure this is very specific. Even if you're not in Singapore, a lot of the similar principles apply. Of course, interest rates will vary, maintenance costs will vary. There are capital gains tax in most countries, unlike Singapore. But on the other hand, you do tend to get much higher capital gains in other countries.
We were just talking about that this morning, actually.
Yeah, we were I was telling that the average capital gain in Singapore has been around 3 to 4%, which is not dramatic. But then it's the leverage and the safety of that leverage that really you can use, right? Okay, should we end it here?
Yep. Hopefully you find our journey interesting. And if you do, of course, I am going to say this. I am a real estate agent.
Yes. A very good one at that.
So do reach out. I particularly work with Hutton's Landed Division, and I'm involved in landed property, especially in District 9, 10, 11, 21, 23. And of course, as I work for Hutton's, I do all sort of properties from HDB to private and even industrial and commercial. So if you have any questions, just do drop. You know where to reach out. We'll put a link in the description below. Yeah. All right.
All right. Take care. Till the next video.
Bye.